So Cathie, can you tell us a little bit about aveNYC and kind of why it's needed and why you felt you needed to start it up in New York?
So aveNYC is a match savings program that we launched last year at tax time. And the point of it is to really incentivize people as they're getting their tax refund to put a small part of it aside, to keep it in savings for at least a year, and then we match them at about 50% of their savings, up to $250.
That's great. And why did you feel it was needed in New York?
Well, we were thinking a lot as with the Office of Financial Empowerment. We've been thinking a lot about how do we incentivize savings, how do we start people on a pathway towards asset development. And the fact of the matter is that we knew at a city level we needed something that was going to be scalable. We needed something that could be able to be delivered across the board to a large segment of the population. We couldn't really spend a whole lot of time and energy focusing on small pilots that may help sort of a couple hundred people. We needed to really create a mechanism that would be able to serve a broad range of low-income people. So we started tinkering around with different ideas around savings. We studied a lot of different models, and we really recognized that tax time was a huge point at which both people were coming in for refunds, and it was a point at which we had contact with a huge segment of the population. So we piloted at a few free tax preparation sites last year, and this year we were able to expand it to 12 sites around the city.
And what were some of the major findings that you found from the pilot? I know it recently ended, but over the course of the 2 years, what are some of the highlights?
So for the most part, we have really data from the first year, and we have found that a couple things. Very low-income people can and will save if given the right incentive, the right mechanisms to do so. Our average income of account holders is about $15,000. And almost 40% of the people who took this up are not even working full-time. So these are folks who are part-time workers or in and out of the labor force, which is a pretty significant thing, that this is sort of not only being taken up by people who are sort of most capable of savings, but it's really being taken up by a broad cross-section. About 95% of the people who signed up said that they intended to save for the full year. And we had about 74% that were able to achieve that. So 74% of the people saved for the full year, and of that, 79% actually rolled the funds over. So what we're finding is that a good large cross-section of people are making the commitment to continue to keep the money in savings. The vast majority of people were saving for emergencies, not necessarily, goal-oriented, except for just recognizing they needed to have some money put aside. So that was about 69% of the people said emergencies was their #1 reason to be saving. A number of other people were saving for their children, and then a much smaller grouping, for home ownership and other kind of more longer-term goal-oriented purposes.
And what are some of the lessons for federal policymakers who might be thinking of trying to design something similar on a national scale?
Well, I think it's the right time to recognize that if we're going to really foster savings, and particularly if we want to think about fostering savings among those who are most vulnerable in our society, people at the lowest income levels, in and out of the labor force, we need to really be thinking about strategies that make sense for them, that give them sort of an opportunity to save when they actually have some cash in hand to save with. So I think the linking it to tax time is critical, particularly because so many folks are eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit, and they're actually in some cases getting the largest paycheck all year. So I think the linking it to tax time, and I think also trying to move, not keeping the goal of fostering savings tied to long-term purposes, that most people get on this pathway of savings because they're just afraid of the next emergency, and they just want a little bit of a nest egg. So if we really want to hit the most vulnerable in our population to be able to get them on that pathway to savings, we really have to make it make sense for them. So I think for federal policy, the idea of fostering savings, I think making it a more short-term vehicle, I think making it linked to tax time, and I think really allowing people to be saving for emergency purposes, I think is really critical.
Great. Thanks, Cathie.
Thank you.